Before we start to tweak some of these things here, let's go ahead and start to organize ourselves. I'm going to go ahead and just call this trunk. And I'm going to call this cone treetops. And let's call our cube gum box. Now, as I always say, when you're modeling, what you're going to do, just like I always say when you're doing things in Adobe Illustrator, is you're going to put down rough shapes just to get the feel, and then you're going to think about how you want to modify them. So let's think about the treetop. Now, you could keep it this way, as you see here, and have a very stylized, very almost industrial look by having this angular shape. But if you wanted to make it look a little softer, you could always add, let me go over here, one of these guys here, a subdivision surface. So let's go ahead and do a quick test render first to see what we have here. So as you see, it's very sharp, and it could be kind of cool because it does have that extreme feeling that we're going to go for this Arctic by gum. But if I add a subdivision surface and I were to drag the treetops into it, let's go ahead and see what happens. I'll do a test render, and now it's nice and soft. So keep those things in mind as you're modeling. All right, so I'm going to just drag the treetops out of there, and I can just go ahead and delete that subdivision surface. Now, something else you might want to do is you might want to go to your points mode. You might want to get in really close on this object, and you could take these points and you can bring them together. So let's say we were to grab, let's say, our scaling tools. We can just click in the middle and kind of close the shape to make it look a little tighter in there. And you might be saying, well, I don't want to do that with all of those parts of the model. But it's kind of relaxing to me to do those things one at a time. So I'm going to do those another test render to just show you that. So what I really want to convey to you in this little part was just to think about different strategies for modeling. There is no right or wrong way. So I'm going to go ahead and put that guy aside for now. And let's think about creating the actual ground now, the landscape. To do this, I could use several different techniques. I could, of course, start out with a cube and subdivide it and pull out mountain forms. I could use a pyramid, probably put a subdivision surface on there and just replicate that a couple of times, but that won't look too good. I could also start out with a landscape, but in this lesson, I want to show you guys how to model things on your own. So we're going to go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way. We're going to make a plane, and we're going to sculpt on this guy to make some mountains. So I'm going to take this plane, and I'm going to put it in the center for now. We can always put it back later on. And I'm also going to scale it up quite a bit. I think that'll do. And we're going to go ahead and just turn this guy into a mesh, because if we go to our sculpting workflow, for example, if I go to sculpting now, all of the sculpting tools will remain ghosted out and unavailable to us until we do so. So if you ever see this and you're wondering what's going on, always check here to see if this button is still illuminated. When you click it, it ghosts out, and now all of the sculpting tools are ready to rock and roll. So what I want to do here is show you guys how I would make the mountain range for this particular project. Now, I'm going to grab my grab brush, and I'm going to actually increase the size of this brush. And what I could do is start to push down some regions that will be a little lower in the front. And I'm going to pull out some of the mountains in the background. And I'm just moving around at random because I want them to look a little more natural as opposed to pre-planned. I don't want to have it look like I'm thinking too hard about this. I just want to think about the mountains and just sculpt. And another thing you want to keep in mind is when you're sculpting, go as far as you can to the point where you think you're going to break the geometry. Like it just looks too messed up. You know, the boxes are just getting too unwieldy and there's not much more you can do to get the shape you want. And at that point is when you decide to subdivide further. But for now, I'm going to keep it the way it is. I'm also going to switch to my standard view because you can also continue sculpting here. And you can simply left mouse button on the geometry itself to resize your brush. And this is the angle I'm going to try to shoot for. Something maybe like this so I can get those mountains pretty high up. I'm just trying to create something interesting here so I can definitely get the forms that I want. I'm going to go back to my sculpting mode. And at this point, I think I will actually subdivide. All right, so let's go ahead and save, and we will continue sculpting in the next lesson.